I'm going to start off by saying that the conversation we are about to have might not be appropriate for you and the children in your car, but it is an exceptionally important one. My colleagues have been having conversations around the hashtag of justice for Cwecwe, and now joining that conversation is the hashtag justice for Alu. And in essence, if you're not aware about these two situations, 7-year-old children that the system failed, where they were sexually assaulted on school premises, and the system, not just the education, not just SAPS, has basically failed them in bringing justice. There are other details that I'm sure many of you are already aware of. In the one scenario, there are adults in the picture, part of the school, that are not being forthcoming with participating with the SAPS investigation of either ruling them out or confirming them as somebody who might be considered a suspect. And the other scenario in the case of Ali, which I heard about yesterday, where when the parents went to report that their 7-year-old had been sexually assaulted and the child named who the person was, the principal said that there's no way, and for them, they would want proof in the form of an underwear of the child with clear evidence that indeed the sexual assault has taken place. So, this is an extremely sensitive conversation. It is going to be very triggering for those of you who are victims, have been affected. Please feel free to tune out, because this is a very, very difficult one, even for myself. I am so heartbroken at how this system has failed. So many have failed. But on top of that, what's also more heartbreaking is that while we are speaking about a Cwecwe and we're speaking about an Alu, they represent many other children whose cases never get reported, whose stories never get believed, not just by the schools, not just by their caretakers, even by their own parents. I once interviewed a young lady who, from the age of 7 to the age of 12, 13 years, had been sexually assaulted by her own father for years. The parents were separated, so she would be visiting the dad. And the way that she found out that what was happening to her was not normal was at school. They were having a conversation about an uncle did this to a child and it was wrong. And then this young girl went and said, that also happened to me with my father. That is how she found out that what was happening to her was not normal. Fast forward, she fell pregnant by her own biological father. The mother did everything that she could to support her child. She's an adult now. She is unable to have children. That is how severe the damage was to her tiny body. Her mother assisted in getting that child terminated. The person was convicted. The father went into prison and came out shortly. And even in the victim offender program, where the father confessed in front of his own family, because that was extremely important to her, her father's family still does not believe. They still refuse to believe that he did that to her. So this is what I want to find out from all of you. Parents, caregivers, teachers, what have you put in place for these young children who are extremely vulnerable, who are facing so many potential dangers in our country, in our communities? What are the conversations you are having with children At what age have you even started with these conversations? I think on this very show, we've even had conversations around sex education being introduced in the basic education curriculum, and people saying you're sexualizing children early. But they are children as young as 6 and 7 who are being violated and sexualized, and they're not aware that what is happening to them is not right and is not normal. There is also this idea that stranger danger, don't talk to strangers, where we have not yet figured out the part of how do you teach children not just about stranger danger, but strange behavior danger from the people that you know and trust. I want to hear from the parents, the teachers, what have you put in place for these little children? And I understand that there's that part of it is, we're trying to maintain our child's innocence for as long as possible. But in these scenarios where these children have been violated, the parents were not able to connect the dots immediately. A child was not able to put words to what was being said. So I'm going to share what my mother did for me. From the moment I was able to talk, to comprehend, as far back as I can remember, my mother always would tell me, if anybody touches you here, she had bought me a book called Where Do Babies Come From, with images and everything. She let me read it by myself. I read it with her. She asked me to ask questions, and then she explained to me, this here is for adults. If anybody does this with you, if ever somebody touches you here. She even taught me the names of my private parts at a younger age. I understood what all of these things were because she was clear. You're not going to learn about these things outside of the home. And number 2, should anything happen to you by anybody, you should know that I am the first person you will be coming to as a child. So the moment that something untoward happened to me as a child, the first thing I did was go to my mother. It was not a question of would I be believed. It was not a question about any of those things. And I will never forget, and I will never not be grateful that my mom created a space where those types of conversations could happen. I have a 3-year-old who's going on 4. And he understands the language. Now we speak about private parts. We speak about private parts, that these are your private parts. We speak about who's allowed to touch his private parts and under what circumstances it is allowed. We speak about it openly. Even at creche, they have those conversations. But it is so difficult trying to figure out how we're going to prepare our kids, because we cannot keep them locked up in the house. And keep in mind, statistically, victims of sexual assault, especially when they are children, are more likely to be somebody they know than a complete stranger. More likely to be. There is a woman, and I cannot recall her name. I will share it before the end of the show. She shared a story about how she discovered that her nieces were being sexually assaulted by her husband. Long story short is, her family knew what was going on, and I guess they were afraid to tell her or how to tell her. They put her in a WhatsApp group and basically said, listen, your husband has been doing this to this child. And she shares how the first thing she did, because now her family was not answering their phones to answer, she went straight to the school of the niece. She went to the principal's office to say, listen, this is the situation. My husband is being accused, and I would like to pull her out of class and talk to her. Now, you might be thinking, oh, typical. There are those wives that enable and protect. That's not what she did. She went to say, what did this man do to you? With the principal and I think a social worker in the room. The child confirmed that her husband did that. She took the child out of school, went straight to the police station to open a case against her husband. Did not even call him first. She went straight to the police station, opened a case, then discovered that there were other children in the family that the same thing was happening to at the hands of her husband. She did follow the same process, going to the school, asking the child, did this happen to you? The child said yes. Pulling the child out of school, going straight to the police station and opening a case against her husband. She did not hesitate. She did not flinch. Now we live in an era where evidence needs to be, like, the fear of a child being raped is less than the fear of a wrongful accusation. And this is what I'm seeing from the conversation. So I would like to hear from you. 011 883 0702, the WhatsApp line 072 702 1702. Let's go to the lines. Mike in Pretoria, go ahead. Hi, Mike, go ahead.
Yeah, I'm here.
Yes.
And the problem with this case, I think, I was just discussing this with my wife. Then she had another thing that I didn't think of. What is
Oh, Mike. Sorry, just repeat that again. I lost you for a second.
I'm saying what the person who did this horrible thing to this poor girl was using a condom. So the DNA is not going to pick up this.
That is definitely a factor. And I'm not sure on what that means if that person used protection and they're not able to get a what you call a sample of sorts. But my assumption in this case is that the two people got ruled out because they did submit their DNA, which is the swab of the inside of the mouth. So it seems that in the case of the Cwecwe situation, that there was a sample to test against. But in general circumstances, like if you're saying, what can one do if under normal circumstances there is no sample? I think that the onus will then sit with the NPA and others to see if the information that they have is sufficient to take to court. And this, we already know, Mike, is the problem. Rape is very difficult to prove.
And the other thing, caretaker, his work is just to take care of everything. Is he supposed to give children work to go and do the rooms to clean? And who gave him the mandate to give kids the mandate to go and clean the rooms?
There are so many questions in this situation that we don't have answers to. I wish I knew the answers, Mike, because to me, why would you send a 7-year-old to go and clean a classroom alone? Why, when you now get to that classroom, this child is waking up, coming to, not being themselves, you now say your transport is here. You didn't ask any questions.
No.
Why, when the child was not being picked up from school, you didn't call the parents first to say the transport didn't arrive? You called the transport guy and not the parents. I don't know what to say. I don't know what to say. I don't know what the answer is.
My thinking is that the caretaker should know. He knows something that he doesn't want anybody to know about. It's either he did that or somebody sent him to take the kids from that safe environment to an excluded place.
Sure, it could be. It very well could be, because to me, there are too many question marks and red flags. What school requires a 7-year-old to go and clean the classroom by themselves? What school requires a 7-year-old to go and sweep a classroom?
And it's not their duty to clean the rooms. And it's not the security guy to tell the kids to go and clean after school. I mean, it was after school. The kids were waiting for the transport. Then you say this kid must go and clean the transport.
Mike, there are so many questions, and thank you so much for calling. I'm just another question. person that currently is being accused, being the principal, in my view, is guilty of something. Either you are guilty of being the perpetrator of this act, or you are guilty of defeating the ends of justice by not participating quick enough for you to be eliminated and allow the work to be done. So you are guilty of something. You are guilty of something. And to me, it looks bad. So instead of you being willing to have your cheek being swabbed on the inside, it is easier for you to allow the school to be deregistered than to submit. I haven't even gotten to the part that you expelled the victim. You expelled the victim. Can somebody please make this make sense to me? I am so confused. I am so confused. As for the departments, the part that breaks my heart the most is that these incidents have been happening. The fact that you had to come to social media as the parents to ask for help because the system has failed you. So parents, what are we doing? How are we going to protect our children? Keep in mind, it's not just the schools. It is uncles, it is aunts. It could be the man that you lay next to. It could be the woman that you lay next to. It could be anybody. Let us not rule out the fact that women are also perpetrators. Women are also enablers. And let's also not rule out the fact, because somebody on X was saying best that girls go to schools with only female teachers. That will not protect girls. And the reason I don't like that narrative is that it dismisses the fact that boys are also victims at the hands of both men and women. So the question again, what are we doing? What are we doing to prepare our children? Teaching them to name their private parts, teaching them what their private areas are. What are we doing beyond that? Because we can't keep them locked in their houses, locked up in their houses. Like, we can't. And I'm also at a point where I'm like, okay, so if we are trusting in the justice system we know is currently failing us, all of us, failing. If then that is the case, what is the alternative? Where and how must it get solved? And I know some will say death penalty, there's chemical castration. Is it really solving the root cause of the issue? Your voice notes are coming through on 072 702 1702.
Afternoon, Relebogile. Yeah, what this caller has just raised or pointed out now about the condom issue, it's angering because of now. When you think about what if this guy used a condom to rape this little girl, what can implicate him to the rape? Because of now, there is no DNA that can be linked to him if the guy used the condom. Do you see now, even if we talk about such things, we are now giving these pedophiles, ideas of what to do in the future when they rape, because they can now, come with ways of, taking themselves away from the crime scene by using the condoms. Now it's opening a can of worms. It's, I just hope that they find the person who raped that little girl. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much for that voice note. Please forgive me. I'm extremely emotional about this. One says on the WhatsApp line, she was in the car with me yesterday. She's now refusing to go back to school following the news on that poor little girl, Cwecwe, man. What are we doing to our kids? Another one says, with regards to Cwecwe's case, English is sometimes polite. Young nyonsa, as in it nauseates me. Some men committed incest, touchy in buses and trains many years ago. The guy makes us to be suspicious. He must do DNA tests to redeem himself, period. That's anonymous in Kempton Park. Another one says, Lebo, I now have told her never spend any time with an adult without other kids around her. Ooh, that's maybe something that can assist, is never spend time with an adult without other kids around her. Are you as parents, do you have like a a code word. I know what some parents do is that, let's say your child wants to go to a party, and then you say, if you want to get out of the situation, you call and you use some kind of code word. So let's say the code word is, Mommy, can we have custard for supper tonight? Let's say. Because when they're like preteens and things like that, there's peer pressure. They don't want to make it obvious that they feel uncomfortable at somebody else's house, which is reminding me of that case where the kids were sleeping over and the dad drugged his daughter's friends and they were like 8 years old. And then the dad didn't want the parents to come into the house at night saying they're sleeping, but he drugged them. So are you guys doing safe words? Are you saying to your kids, call me? Or have you got apps on the phone that do a red alert, I'm in trouble, and it automatically shows where they are? I saw there's now a toddler's phone that you pull the cord when you're in trouble, and it takes a picture of the front of the phone and the back of the phone, sends it immediately to the parents with a location. Are those some of the things that you are doing? But what is it that you are doing? More of your messages and voice notes when we come back. It's 1:30, 26 minutes to 2 o'clock. We are having a conversation that if you have children in the car, you might want to switch stations. But we're talking about how, as parents and caregivers, we are preparing children for a world where a justice for Cwecwe, a justice for Alu is in place, because small, vulnerable children, babies, are being sexually assaulted by people that they know in spaces that they need to be safe in. How are you preparing your children for the world that we live in today? Are you teaching them about stranger danger? That was a big one. Don't talk to strangers, don't take sweets. But then we realized, hey, most of the perpetrators are not some scary looking stranger that's lurking the streets. They are laying next to you in your home, and they're not always men. Sometimes the perpetrators are women too. Sometimes the enablers are women too. I have had scenarios of children being sexually assaulted, and when they tell their mother that their stepfather or father or uncle, the mother will say, who's going to feed us? You can't tell anybody. 011 883 0702, the WhatsApp line 072 702 and 702. Stephen in Alberton. Hi, go ahead.
Hi, Rebecca, how are you?
I'm okay, and you?
Okay, thanks. Yeah, one cannot engage in this discussion without feeling enraged and wanting to kill someone, but it is what it is. I think not all is lost. I'm not an expert, but what I know about DNA is that even though the person might have used condom, not all is lost, because DNA could be obtained or extracted from pubic hairs, from hair follicles, from other fluids, even sweat that can be found on the girl, or even, look, we know that these pedophiles are like sick people. They may not even have engaged in your conventional sexual intercourse with this poor girl. He might have thrusted himself orally and otherwise. And he might have rubbed his sweat, and he might have lost pubic hairs or something. You will always get something, not only from seminal fluids, but you will always get DNA from other particles from bodily organs and stuff. Yeah, but this angers. I don't know. I'm trying to calm myself while I'm talking. I'm on the edge myself.
Stephen, and I think it's so important you're noting that, because in the case of adults, I've had to ask myself that if I were a victim of that kind of assault, would I naturally, even though I know, go to the hospital can call the police, make sure you get, the swabs and things. I'm trying to imagine for a child who is not even able yet to articulate what's happened to them. Kids usually come home and get bathed before bed. That's the scary
Yeah.
part, is that kids come home and because they're not able to articulate. So, for example, when a child, in the case of one of these victims, was saying, "My tummy hurts," they were unable to articulate where the pain is coming from. Then, when the parent noticed that the child was not walking properly, it's then when they said, "I need to actually check." When they looked, it was then they were like, So my worry is that a DNA is that you have a window because kids get bathed usually twice a day.
Yeah. And you know what's very sad, Lebohila, on this is that yes, the interventions to try and trace the perpetrator and get him locked up and the key thrown away is one element of it to stop him from doing this. But you can never salvage back what damage has been done to this girl. You know what I'm saying? We may stop him from doing it over and over again, but what angers and really puts one on the edge is that the damage is already done on this, and the only salvage that can be done, something that's salvageable, is just stopping him from repeating.
Can I even just add something that is just even more painful? So somebody was saying they had the thought that maybe in this case of the principal, that the reason he was refusing to do the swab is not just because of that child, but that there might be other cases that already existed.
Yeah, that's true. Look, it could be between this principal and the janitor, but there's something that can be investigated with the janitor. The behavior is very suspect as well. Between the two of you, between the two of them, something is very suspicious that went on there. But look, the principal could even not have had anything to do with the kid. That has maybe other incidents outside the kid. If they run his DNA through the processes, they might pick up that he's an offender somewhere else.
Yes,
You know,
yes.
yeah, that could be the reason. But yeah, one is waiting with abated breath.
Thank you for
What comes
your
out
for
Yeah,
sharing that, because I think it's important that everybody knows that it sucks that you need to take your child to get swabbed and basically have them feel re-violated. Even as an adult, you wouldn't want to do that. But ideally, it's that your child shouldn't be bathed. Is that they should be going. And keep in mind, you don't have to go to the police station first. You can go straight to a hospital and the police can be called there. Do not let anybody tell you otherwise. You don't have to go to the police station first. I've sat in certain police stations where I know for a fact there's not a single person that I see there that I would even be comfortable to speak to about if that happened to me. More of your voice notes.
Just on the point of the school principal and the child, if there were consequences to these actions, people would act better. The problem is that there are no consequences. It's one of the biggest problems. So yes, we can't keep our children locked away and we can teach them everything we can teach them, but there are just no consequences. So people get away with it and they don't think twice.
Hi, Relebukile and 702 listeners. It's Dave from Honeydew. I kind of heard this story from, I think it must have been yesterday, but only now that I've really just grasped what the whole situation is about. And I don't have much to say. I just literally just dropped tears. I'm like, wow, really? Really, guys, is this where this nation is? Is this where this country is? Is this how low this country is? Like, really, just listening to this story, like, wow, my blood is boiling. Like, I literally just dropped tears when I just heard you speak about the whole, the brief part of the whole story and what happened. Like, wow. Man, God, really protect that girl.
Hi, Relebohile. Good afternoon. This is Vali here. Listen, even if the perpetrator has used a condom to assault a child, If the child is taken to a professional doctor, and they can check whether there was any penetration. If there was penetration, that is good enough for the courts to accept it. Thank you.
Good afternoon, Relebogile. You know what? I think it must be mandatory that any staff member who's not an educator at school should not be seen having conversations with kids. Be it your security guard, your cleaner, and they should also not be giving out any instructions to kids, right? So that we can limit, these things can be limited to only educators, so that if there is any issue that arises like this one, at least you've ruled out the security guard, you've ruled out this person and blah, 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 and then you can focus on the teachers that should then be accountable and answerable to any thing that happens to the kids. Cheers. Bye.
Thank you so much for that message. I just had a thought right now. And hear me out with what I'm about to say. If there is no DNA match, to me, that does not automatically rule you out. And this is what I mean by that. If you are adults who are around the situation and are aware of what is happening, maybe you're ruled out because you are not participating in the act or you did not leave evidence, but does not mean you are innocent, if you understand what I'm saying. Because there are multiple explanations that need to come into play. And now what makes this whole thing complicated is for justice to be served. It will require that poor child being re-traumatized over and over again. Whether it's speaking to social workers, whether it's being examined, whether it's them having to repeat the story over and over again, whether it's them now having to go back to the environment where something happened. That is the worst part of this whole thing. That is the worst part of it all. Godfrey in Santon. Go ahead, Godfrey.
How's it?
Good on you.
You know, it's said that we are living in a country that has got relaxed laws that cannot even protect those who cannot speak for themselves. What we need is law that needs to be changed, that if there's an allegation of rape, especially of minors, people must be killed. I'm telling you, you will kill 4 or 5 people in this country. From there, it will stop definitely, because having to do any other forms of negotiations, awareness, they don't work. So all we need is to say, you get alert on this thing, you pay with your life. That's all.
Thank you.
I always say, you touch my daughter, I will kill you myself. And I won't be scared to tell the magistrate, I will do it again if somebody to touch my child. I will do it over and over and over again, up until they understand. You touch someone's child, you will be killed. That is the only way to exterminate rape in this country.
Godfrey, I hear you completely, and thank you so much. The justice system has failed all of us. All of us. There are too many people in my immediate circle, in my family, in my life, who are victims of sexual assault from the times that they were children all the way to where they are now. But let me tell you something. As a broadcaster, I will never encourage violence of any kind. As a parent, I am not the one, not with my child. I am not the one. Let me make that so clear. I will happily serve whatever sentence is meted upon my life when it comes to my child. And that is why what we're talking about infuriates me so much. Those poor children are never going to be the same. You have destroyed them. You have crushed them. You have absolutely no idea what damage you have done to them. And I also refuse to describe these people as sick, because sick people need to be taken to doctors. And I'm yet to hear an expert that can tell us how somebody who has committed a sexual crime can be reformed. So again, I repeat, as the host of this show, as a broadcaster, I will never encourage violence of any form. But as a parent, our system has failed us so badly. I have no idea what we're going to do, how we're going to raise our children. And that's why I had to ask, how are we preparing our children? Because even now, the things we're talking about, we're preparing them to report to us. But how are we preparing them to be protected? To never have to experience such a thing. I am not the one. I, as Rebkhile Mabocha, I am not the one. I can tell you that as a parent, I am not the one. I am not the one. Michelle in Johannesburg, go ahead.
Thanks so much. Over 360,000 women in South Africa are raped every year. Over 357,000 men get away with raping women every single year in South Africa. Over a 10-year period, that's over almost 3.6 million rapists walking around freely in our country. If we don't start to realize there's a war against women and it's completely institutionalized and systemic, and it's a weapon of oppression, I don't think we're going to recover. And we need to integrate AI into apps and systems to start tracking and monitoring in real time these types of crimes. But it's absolutely ridiculous that violence against women and children in this country is so prolific. And if we don't start clamping down on human trafficking, we are going to suffer as a consequence greatly.
Michelle, thank you so much for that. The statistics are, they are so jarring and so real. And thank you for that, Michelle. And I also want to call out, because some of these cases, you'll find that things are happening at church and perpetrators like pastors or church leaders are protected. So when I say that the system has failed, I'm talking about everybody in the system, in our communities, the churches, the families themselves. You have failed. We have failed. We have failed. I don't know how many more times I can say we have failed. I love my country so much, but this is the most heartbreaking thing. It is so heartbreaking. And I do not blame a single parent that would want to do something about it themselves. I don't blame a single parent. Hear more of your voice notes.
Hey, my wife and I made a decision that no more sleepovers. Our daughter's 9 years old, and only place she's allowed to sleep over is her grandfather. That's it. No friends, especially friends' houses. You never know who's there. Cousins over, someone else is over for a braai. That's it. It's finished. Those days are gone.
Hi, Ria. I hope you're well. I read yesterday in the newspaper that there's another 7-year-old boy who was also raped at the same school in November last year. And I'm not sure why this is not being talked about as widely or being given the same attention, because clearly there's something wrong at the school if a young 7-year-old boy was also raped a month after this young girl was raped.
How's it going, Relebohile? It's Luke here. I just wanted to say that this whole situation is so tricky. Not with the principal not wanting to help and all that stuff, but just when it comes to abusers in general, and how if you look into their past, there does seem to be a connection between someone that was abused who then abuses others. So I see what you mean about what do we actually do about it, because we can bring in executions, chemical castration, but what happens to the people that are currently being abused that may very well become abusers one day?
Label, when you sweat, well, I've learned this through experience. I don't know how to put it, but there's something that your body leaves behind on whatever you come in contact with another body, door handles, or whatever. It's not fingerprints, it's called epithelial cells. They get that from the victim's body, wherever, and they test that to see if they use it as a form of DNA to identify, so it will match the perpetrator's DNA.
Lebohile, good afternoon. This is heartbreaking. I'm not gonna lie, justice for Cwecwe is something very, very heartbreaking to actually think that our kids are not safe, neither at schools, neither at malls, neither at home, in our own personal spaces, neither at their friends' houses. So where exactly are women and children, boy child, girl child, are supposed to be safe? Where are they supposed to be safe? If this school doesn't have CCTV cameras and the principal does not want to partake in having his DNA done, how about then they all undergo a what do you call a lie detector test? Yes, how about that?
Spend your afternoon with Relebohile Mabota on 702. Let's walk the talk.